Corey Sanders. Wow, it seems like just yesterday I was at my friend's house and we was in his room binge watching Home Team Hoops and his hoop mixtape videos. Growing up, not just me, but many other people watched this guy because he had that ego and swagger that attracted people. The way he had so much fun on and off the court was something that we've never really seen before, well at least never seen documented. I think the Home Team Hoops series with Corey Sanders was the real turning point. I wouldn't say it was the start, but it was the turning point for what is now Ball is Life Overtime and other companies like that. Yes, before Sanders' documentaries and videos came out, there was other mixtape videos. But that's my point exactly. They were just hoop mixtape videos. It's not like it was with Corey Sanders where he was doing documentaries as well. If you didn't have a chance to watch it growing up and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll give you a brief summary. I'm sure on Slam High School, Overtime, Ball is Life, or a different company, you've seen the day in the life videos. That's what it was for Sanders, and I wouldn't even say it was a day in the life, it was much more than that. It was literally the behind the scenes and most of the video wasn't even really edited. One reason why he started to get popular and the videos got really popular was because it attracted people and it was something that, like I said, we haven't seen before. It was a good example of a high demand but low supply. At the time around 2014 and 15, YouTube wasn't as big as it is now. Overtime wasn't even a thing, Slam High School was not even on the rise like they are now, and Ball is Life, they've been around for a while, but they didn't start to get big just yet. Reason number two, with there being a high demand and low supply of videos like that also turned into this. This kind of goes hand in hand with it, but the producer of the videos found a niche in videos. And he was also the first to start this niche, so he was the only one producing them and people wanted to see them, so they were all going to blow up. I wouldn't say Corey was a household name growing up just because of the fact that many parents didn't know who he was. With that being said, if you kept up with basketball at all, I would say he was a household name. He was a real inspiration to many kids from the age of 7 to I say up to 18 or 19. Every hooper in that age range that I just said wanted to be in the position he was. But however, with that being said, that was then. Now, they don't want to be in the position he is. What's really absurd about this entire situation and story is the fact that if it was 7 years ago and you told me where Corey Sanders is currently at, there's no way and no chance I would believe you. I just really wouldn't, and I say that meaning it 100%. Although I can't speak for you, let's just say I'm almost 99% sure that you won't believe it either. So without further ado, let's get into Corey Sanders' story. Meet Corey Sanders, coming in at roughly 6 foot and 100. Hold on. To get into this story, you already know. We gotta throw it all the way back to where things started. Mr. Sanders himself was born on April 17th in 1997. Growing up in Florida for most of his life, he was your average Florida boy. He messed around with a lot of sports, had many hobbies, but ultimately, he fell in love with basketball. What most people don't understand is that his rise to the top didn't even start at the top. He wasn't really that great of a player until later in his high school career. He began and started his high school career at a school known as McKeel Academy in Lakeland, Florida, and this is where he played 2 seasons. I'm gonna try to keep this short and sweet. There's nothing really to talk about because there was nothing going on. He wasn't that great, like I said. Things are gonna get kinda hectic though, so make sure you pay attention. In his second year of high school basketball, he transferred to George W. Jenkins High School in the spring of his second year. When he transferred there, he thought he was going to stay there and finish out his high school career there, but he didn't stay long. Saying he didn't stay long doesn't even do it justice, and matter of fact, he only stayed a couple of months. By the beginning of his junior season in high school, he transferred to IMG Academy. We all know how big of a powerhouse this is, and this was going to be a big jump for him. At this point in time in our story, this is when he was getting a ton of his hype and attention and clout, if you want to call it, off of those YouTube videos. He was getting some of that attention before he transferred to IMG, but this is when it got really big. He was now a good player playing on an even better team. His stint at IMG didn't last long though, because he left IMG in November 2013 for quote-unquote family reasons. And now this is when he transferred back to Kathleen High School in Lakeland, Florida. This was a devastating blow for him because all he knows is playing basketball, and for him to have to sit out, it hurt him. But when you go from school to school to school like he was doing, eventually you're going to be ruled ineligible, and that's exactly what happened. For the first half of his junior basketball career, he was ruled ineligible, but he was eligible for the second half. He was practicing, but he couldn't play, so he was still getting better, and he took his anger out. He put up the numbers that people expected him to put up. He averaged almost 16 points per game. I know what you're probably thinking, why did he transfer so much? Well, I wish I could give you a definite answer to that, or even an answer at all, but I can't. The only thing that I could even find is the fact that he just didn't like staying in one area and he was always on the move. And then too, he was getting a slight ego, so if things weren't going his way, he would just leave. Take that with a grain of salt though, because there was stuff going on behind the scenes, like family reasons that we know nothing about. After his junior season, you're probably thinking his senior season was fairly simple, but once again, he transferred. He initially returned to George Jenkins for his senior season, but he transferred to Faith Baptist Christian Academy in Georgia in September 2014. But in that same year, only in November, he transferred to West Oaks Academy in Orlando. So in just 1 year of his senior season, he transferred 3 times. And when it was all said and done for his high school career, he transferred roughly 7 to 8 times. That's just weird, man. Also too, there was no stability. He wasn't staying in one area, and you would think this would affect him mentally and eventually affect his game, but that didn't even happen. He wound up leading West Oaks to the 2015 Sunshine Independent Athletic Association State Championship. I know that was a mouthful, but basically, he led them to the championship. At this point in time in our story and in his senior season, things couldn't have got any better. He was now regarded as a 6'2", 170-pound 4-star recruit with an overall 85 grade on ESPN, and he was a top 75 player. To go along with that, he had offers from almost every school, and he could basically choose where he wanted to go. Then, if things couldn't have got any better, we gotta keep in mind that he was a social media star. He had almost 50 D1 offers, he was a social media star and a 4-star recruit. His life was at its peak. His high school career was the definition of a movie, it just was. For his recruitment process, it was fairly simple. Early in his basketball career in 2013, he committed to UCF, but he decommitted right after. But on September 4th in 2014, during his senior season, he committed to Rutgers. At the time, this really confused and baffled people because they were saying, why would he go to Rutgers when he's got offers from all these D1 schools? I get Rutgers is D1, but it's not high class like Auburn, Marquette, LSU, Tennessee, and all the others. I just named some of the few ones that were somewhat close to where he was at. It wasn't even a case too where he's from Rutgers or even that's close to him because he grew up mostly in Florida. With that being said, people understood it on this side of things. He's going to Rutgers, they're not known as a powerhouse, so he can be a one and done, dominate, be the main player, and get all the glory. I think he would have been better off going to a very good D1 program that has a ton of great facilities and they're a great basketball program. No disrespect to Rutgers at all, but when you're talking about some of the top schools of all time, they don't come to mind. I think why he chose Rutgers and what had a big play in it is this right here. Remember, in high school he was a social media star, so he had an ego. You can say that's a good or bad thing, I don't care. I don't think having an ego is a bad thing, but some people do. But remember, he had basically his own TV show on YouTube, he was a 4-star recruit, and every high school he went to, he was the guy. So, theoretically, if he would have went to a school that had a lot of good players like him, all that shine wouldn't have gone to him. Whereas, for example, choosing Rutgers that don't have a lot of good players, he's still going to be the guy. That's something to keep in mind and think about because I do think that's why he chose them. But it doesn't matter. Regardless of why he chose them, he went there. I know exactly what you're probably thinking. Yo Matt, this is where you say our story takes a drastic turn. But it doesn't. Going into college, he was expected to produce right away, and he actually exceeded the expectations. For his freshman season, he averaged a very impressive 15.9 points per game. Averaging 16 points per game in a very good conference, that's incredible, there's nothing else to say. He also pitched in roughly 3 rebounds and 4.3 assists. I can't say enough good things about his freshman season because it was great. He also shot 42% from the field, which is really good considering he was taking 14 shots per game. Also, here's what impressed me the most. The only knock on him going into college was the fact that he wasn't known as a great 3-point shooter, but for that season, he shot 31.5% from deep. I get it, that number don't wow you, but it was good enough to open up his entire game and keep the defense honest. The dude had a straight up fabulous freshman season, and at this point in time, people were talking about him getting drafted in the first or second round. But remember in high school, he wasn't the most humble guy ever, so you could say he had an attitude problem. And two, like I said, with him having that big ego, sometimes people with an ego feel like they're invincible and rules don't apply to them. I'm saying all that to say this. As good as his freshman season was, there was a downside. He got suspended for 4 games for violating the team rules. As to what he violated and what he did, that was kept within the program. To put the cherry on top of things, the head coach wound up getting fired, and this is when he had to make a big decision. Is he going to transfer or declare for the NBA draft? Here's the thing, when you're playing for a coach that lets you take a lot of shots and he's friendly to you, you're going to be more efficient and more effective and look better on the court. So with Rutgers getting a new coach, that means that coach that's coming in didn't recruit Sanders. So more than likely he really don't like him, but he could. That's the reason he thought about transferring, or not just transferring, going to the NBA draft. I remember this like it was yesterday. People weren't projecting him as a first round pick, but they said he could be a very late first round, but more than likely a second rounder. Still, that's really good for him, but everyone was advising him to go back to college, get better, and be a lottery pick the next season. When you do that, you're taking a chance, because if you get worse, you're not going to get drafted at all. It was a hard decision, but Sanders wound up remaining at Rutgers. And now, this is where our story doesn't take a drastic turn, but a slow downhill spiral for the worst. Maybe not spiral, but I would say it goes a little downhill, just really slow. For his sophomore season, which was the year 2016 through 17, his points per game dropped. He went from averaging 15.9 points per game to only 12.8. His rebounds, assists, and steals went down as well. Whether that was due to having a new coach and a new system, or the fact that he just didn't have a good year, that's up for debate. His field goal attempts per game was staying right at 13 to 14, but his efficiency dropped. He went from shooting 42% the previous year to only shooting 38%. And this right here, out of all the stats, is the biggest one, at least in my opinion. His 3-point percentage went from 31.5 to only 26.6. It went from borderline good to below average. And that right there is what every NBA scout and analyst was scared of. We know he's athletic, but they were scared of his shooting ability. Shooting was not his strong suit, but if he could shoot good enough, it could open up his game. One thing to note too that a lot of people don't talk about enough is that in his sophomore year, this team wasn't that good, so he was getting a ton of double teams. Teams also had tape and film on him from his freshman season, whereas when he was going into Rutgers for his freshman season, they weren't even studying him. Let me put it in an example for you. If I'm playing for Duke and it's Corey Sanders' freshman season and we're playing Rutgers, we have zero film on this guy and we're not studying him. So therefore, if he likes to shoot right-handed layups and he likes to shoot one dribble pull-ups, I would have no idea. Flash forward in time though to the second season, his sophomore year, when I play him, I'm gonna know all that stuff, so I can lock him down a little bit better than the first time. Therefore, theoretically, I may not clamp him, but where he scored 16 the first time we played him, I may hold him to only 12, and that's what happened this entire season. He was still hooping. To average almost 13 points per game as a sophomore is really good, but that's why his points per game did drop by 2 or 3 points, because people knew what his strong suit was. For sophomore year 2, at the end of the season, this is when things got really bad, because whereas his freshman season, people were saying he could have went to the draft if he wanted to, he had no chance now. So he had no other choice but to return for his junior year. For his junior season, which was the year 2017 through 18, I got some good news. His points per game went back up to 15.2, but that's still not as high as he was doing in his freshman season. His assists, steals, rebounds all stayed relatively the same. He did bring his field goal percentage up to 40, which is really good considering he was shooting 15 shots per game. But what really hurt him is what hurt him his sophomore season. His 3-point percentage was a miserable 22.4%. I like Corey Sanders, I really do, but man, that is bad. As good as his junior season was, averaging 15 points per game, it still wasn't as good as his freshman season. Here's the thing with the NBA. They like to recruit players that have a high potential and they continue to get better and better and better. They don't really care if you play at college for 3 to 4 years, they just want to see constant improvement. That was the ultimate factor in determining why he wasn't getting drafted. He was a good player in college. In his freshman, sophomore, and junior season, you can make an argument and say they were all good/great years. But he never improved from his freshman to junior season, and that's a big, and I mean a big problem. One thing to note if you're a Rutgers fan or watched him during this time is the fact that he was getting doubled and triple teamed, but the NBA doesn't care about that. At the end of his junior year, I don't think he was blind to the obvious because he knew coming back for his senior season wasn't going to do anything for him. So he officially declared for the 2018 NBA draft. And of course, to no surprise whatsoever, he went undrafted. But our story doesn't end there, and we still have quite a bit of ways to go. On October 4th in 2018, he signed a deal with the Rio Grande Valley Vipers of the NBA G League. But very shortly after, he was waived on November 1st of 2018, therefore he didn't play a single game with the franchise. This was devastating, but everyone knew he was still going to have some more opportunities. Then out of nowhere, this is just strange, on January 13th in 2019, he signed with the Mega Basket Georgia of the Georgia A-League, and yes, I said that correctly, I know it's strange. You're probably wondering what this league is, and it's just a knockoff version of a G League. He did good there and produced numbers, but nothing crazy. After about 6 months of that, on October 3rd in 2019, he officially signed with the Houston Rockets G League affiliate, also known as the Rio Grande Valley Vipers once again. But for the second time within a couple of years, he was waived on November 1st in 2019. On November 1st of 2018, he got waived by the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. And then on November 1st in 2019, he got waived by the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. That's depressing and sad right there. He got waived by the same team twice on back-to-back dates. As tragic as that sounds, on December 12th in 2019, he signed a multi-year deal with no other than the Lakeland Magic, which should ring a bell because that's where he's from. I know you're also probably wondering, yo Matt, why aren't you telling me how he did at these programs? And I'm not telling you nothing because he really didn't do too much. There's nothing to say. If he was putting up big numbers, I would tell you. He was trying just to fight to stay on the rosters on most of these teams. For the Lakeland Magic, he was an average and a good player, but it didn't work out. So on January 8th in 2020, he signed for an overseas league. I cannot even pronounce the name and I'm not going to try to, but that didn't work out either. So only a couple months after that, on May 6th in 2020, he signed for another overseas professional team known as Astoria Bisanja. I hope I said that right. And ever since that date and up until this current date when I'm making this video, he's still overseas playing and trying to make it. If you would have told me 7 or 8 years ago that Corey Sanders would wind up playing overseas for a team that I can't even pronounce, I would not believe you. And I don't think any of you watching this would either. I know a lot of people are going to say he's a disappointment, and I wouldn't even say that. I'm not biased to him whatsoever, I'm just stating the facts. This guy was a beast in high school and put up double figures in every year in college. That's not a disappointment to me. The fact that he is still playing basketball and hasn't given up yet, there's no way you can label him as a disappointment. He wasn't a top 5-star recruit and he wasn't even a top 4-star recruit. So he wasn't expected to even do that much. People thought he had a chance of getting to the NBA and they wouldn't be shocked by it, but keep in mind, he's only roughly 6'2" and 170 pounds. So what I'm trying to say is the odds were not in his favor. Him not giving up just shows and goes to prove that he's still got that dog in him. And at the end of the day, he's getting paid to do what he loves to do, and you can't beat that. He's pretty active on Instagram, so if you want to go follow him, do that. He posts a lot of basketball pictures and other pictures, and here's one of his post. On March 14th, which is this current month, he posted a basketball picture of him playing for his team and said, "I'm putting in work, I done forgot that I was tired." Then, kind of throwing shots at the NBA, on February 4th, he posted, "I know that I'm raw, do not give a F, they never drafted me." That's pretty funny right there, but that's just his personality. If you watched him growing up, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think it goes without being said that he's got one of the most unique basketball stories of all time. His story takes place and starts in 2012, and now it's 2021 and it's still going on. It's great to see, and although he never made it to the NBA, he's still hooping, so he's living out his dreams. This has been a super long video, so I'm not going to try to talk anymore. Let me know in the comment section what you think about his story. But with all that being said, that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. If you're new to the channel, what are you doing? Join the family. Hit that subscribe button. Leave a like for more. And as always, let's be great. I'm out, y'all. Peace.